Welcome to Upticks. I'm Jake Falcon, the founder of Falcon Wealth Advisors and your host of Upticks. Today is episode 177, How to Spend Your Money. Cory, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. Yeah, another Back to the Future episode. We're recording this on New Year's Eve, but it's going to be released well into January of 2022. So Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
And I thought for today's topic, it would be really interesting because so many financial advisors, including us, talk about how to save your money, right? Whether that be how much to save, how to save it in a tax efficient manner, and all this stuff, but we don't talk enough about how to spend your money. So I thought that'd be a very interesting topic for an episode because I want to split it up into two halves here. The first half, I want to talk about how to spend your money if you're still working. And for the second half, I want to talk about how to spend your money if you're retired. And I'm not talking about clients here, Cory, but do you know anyone out there that's cheap, quote unquote cheap, just to be cheap, that they don't really have a reason for it? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I do. Yeah. Oh yeah. I know lots of people like that.
Right. And so, maybe they don't spring for nice coffee because they want to save money there, or they'll drive around to 4 different gas stations trying to save 2 cents, a gallon at the pump. What are some other examples of people being cheap just to be cheap?
Those are pretty good ones, especially the gas station one, going from station to station. Off the top of my head, I think there's some people who are just naturally more frugal and are, always going to look for the best deal that they can find, period, even if they're not in the position to have to do that.
Right. And that's the important part. So this isn't a knock. If you need to drive around and shop for cheaper gas because it's really gas or groceries, then I get it. And that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the people that have millions of dollars and they're wearing t-shirts with holes in them, right? Or socks.
Maybe they don't care about their clothes.
Yeah. So that's what I want to get into. So I think a lot of it is an internal bias or some sort of psychological upbringing that maybe your parents were cheap or their parents were cheap. And many of our clients' parents grew up during the Depression. So they were taught to not have a mortgage, not have any loans, put your money in the bank or literally in cash in a vault in your house, because there was that horrible traumatic event called the Great Depression where millions of people's lives were permanently negatively impacted, right? And so isn't that crazy how that event in the 20s is in 1920s is still psychologically impacting people in the 2020s.
Yeah, people are shaped from that 100 years later. I do think that with it being a generational thing, like you just said, Jake, it's pretty wild. But I do think we probably don't talk enough or think enough about the fact that, people's biases towards money, so much of it has to do with the way that they were raised, the experiences that their families have had. And, sometimes you can't shake that or change it.
But my mission is to change it. Right?
Okay.
And that's the topic of today's show, Cory, because
you're welcome for that segue. It wasn't on purpose.
Thank you. Because I think far too many people are living with financial anxiety for no real reason. And so if you're still working, okay, I want to teach you how to spend your money. And so the number one thing for people that are still working is to make sure that as your income comes in, that you are diverting it to the appropriate savings account vehicle and in the most tax efficient manner. So what we do, so if you're 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years old and you're still working, what we do in our financial planning process is that we will say, Mr. and Mrs. Client, you need to save 15% of your 401k, all of it pre-tax or half and half Roth. You need to put this much in your emergency savings, and you need to put this much towards your mortgage and other debt. So the idea is once you get all of that set up, and by the way, the more you can automate these things, the better. But the idea is once you get that automated and set up and plugged into your financial plan, and a quick side note, it's very important how that money's invested. That's a whole topic for another show, and invested appropriately. Then you should be able to experience something that's called guilt-free spending. Meaning if you make, to make the math simple, if you make $10,000 a month and we're telling you 2,000 needs to go into these different buckets for your savings, well, then that $8,000 that you're netting, I'm saying 10,000 after tax. So that $8,000 that you're netting, can go to your mortgage and your other bills. And let's say after that, you've got 4,000 left. Well, that $4,000 that's hitting your account every month while you're working, as long as you have all your savings taken care of, I'm talking about college savings for kids, emergency savings, retirement savings, Florida beach house savings, whatever you're saving for, all of that's itemized out, and you've got your debt obligations taken care of, you're netting that $4,000. You should feel comfortable spending that money on whatever you want, guilt-free. And I think that's where there's a huge problem. I think that's where you said that unchangeable bias, Cory, is causing people to still not want to spend money without realizing some guilt.
Let me give you a really quick, real client story on this.
Good, please.
Because I just had a conversation with a client about this yesterday. So I was reviewing with a client, and they recently took a pretty good sized chunk of money out of their retirement account, out of one of their retirement accounts, to make a down payment on a home for their daughter, son-in-law, and children, because they weren't in the position to be able to buy a home right now. And they wanted to be able to help them along the way. Their financial plan supported it very comfortably. They ultimately did buy the house that they wanted to. They put the money down. They worked out an agreement with their daughter and son-in-law where they said,
time out. That's pretty dangerous stuff. They're playing with some fire there, but go ahead. Not from a financial plan, but from a family dynamic.
From a family standpoint, fair enough. But
go ahead.
Only child, so maybe that changes
True.
might change it a little bit. But it's interesting that yesterday when I was reviewing with this client, they actually pulled the money out a month or two ago. He commented to me a few times how he felt guilty about them frankly taking that chunk of money out of their accounts, putting it toward a house, spending it the way that they did, being in the position to do that he just had a sense of guilt associated with doing that. Absolutely. Even though him and his wife's retirement plan is in great shape. They wanted to be able to help out their family. We helped them understand that they could do this comfortably, but it didn't change the fact that he felt guilty about it.
Right. That's buyer's remorse, which is very real and happens. So what did you tell that client? How did you guide him through that feeling of guilt?
I told them, one, you worked hard for a long time and saved the money so you could spend it the way that you wanted to. Two, handling this the way that you did allows you the opportunity to be able to, personally get some joy from, giving money to your daughter and son-in-law, because ultimately their plan supports the fact that they're going to be leaving money to their daughter anyway. And the fact of the matter is they could use the help a lot more now than they probably could 20 or 30 years from now. And he's like, Cory, I get it. And I appreciate everything that you guys have done. I know this wasn't part of our plan all along, and we couldn't be happier that it worked out the way that it did, but it just doesn't change the fact that I just have this feeling inside of me about doing it.
Which again is okay. I'm not saying that the buyer's remorse or the feeling is wrong. And I think you did a great job there. Is that, you've got to embrace those feelings. You got to understand. And I think hopefully by us having a financial plan for this client and you being able to show, the husband and wife, right, that it's a husband and wife, right, that helped their daughter.
Yep.
Look, as parents, you're helping your daughter, and now while she needs it, like you said, and your plan still looks good. So that money is actually put to good use. It's not being squandered or wasted. Right.
Exactly. And we talk about, right, it's just aligning your spending with what's important to you. They identified that this was important to them, and that's why they wanted to do it, and they could comfortably.
Right.
Really cool thing.
Yeah, it's awesome, I think, and I'm sure hopefully the daughter's eternally grateful, and they can have many memories in this home. And if they have grandkids and all those things, that they're going to live maybe that much a little bit better as a result of this. And that's why hopefully your clients work so hard and save the money.
That's what it's all about.
And all of our clients, right? So So this $4,000 chunk of money though, so whether, you and I have different interests, right? So whether you're spending that money on tennis stuff or travel with your wife, right, or whatever, and I'm spending it on golf or travel with my wife, that all is guilt-free though, right? So that's a judgment-free zone. In my example here, you start with the 10,000, hits your checking account, you got your savings or whatever, and you've got your normal bills, so you got 4,000 left. Whatever you spend that money on should be guilt-free. Now, the people that get in trouble though, the people that are abusing money, they're spending more than that $4,000 a month, right? And that's when you start to rack up some credit card debt. And I get it, life happens. Maybe it's emergency. Maybe you do have to help out a family member, and we can certainly help you work through that and unwind that. But that's what you need to be aware of though, as while you're working, helping, us helping you have a financial plan is huge, because you can check off all the savings buckets, check off all the debt obligations budgets, and then we can show you how much you have left for your guilt-free spending. And you should feel fine buying designer clothes or going on a shopping spree, at Walmart or whatever it is, right? So whatever it is that you normally feel guilty about, my point is, as long as you've got all of those boxes checked and your financial plan is in good order, that should hopefully, and again, my mission is to change some of that century-long psychological anxiety that's ingrained in people, and recognize that if they work with a fiduciary advisor, such as us at Falcon Wealth Advisors, they don't have to have that. They don't have to act on that fear anymore. And that's what they're doing. By being cheap just to be cheap, they are acting on that fear. And what I want to do is say, yes, the fear is there, but let's walk through that fear and let's see what's on the other side, and let's make sure your financial plan can support what you're really doing.
Personally, learning and going through some of these things myself, it is a very freeing feeling once you do get into that position where you say, you know what, if I want to spend money on this, if my mom and dad might think I'm crazy for spending that amount of money on whatever it is. I'm just making up an example here, but if I know that I can do that guilt-free, it's a very freeing feeling. And frankly, I can end up enjoying whatever that purchase is that much more because of it.
Right. Right. And if you have left over after the 4,000, then that's fine too. Save it just to save it.
Yeah. Don't have to save it all, or don't have to spend it all.
Right. You don't have to, but whatever you do spend that money should be guilt-free. So maybe you do want to save more, and that's fine. Right. But what I'm getting at is that pool of money that's left over, you shouldn't feel guilty about spending it.
Should I feel guilty about this that I bought this morning?
No. Well,
Okay,
I don't
good.
know. I mean, as long as you've got all
kidding.
as long as you've got your savings set up, right? Your emergency, your retirement,
I do.
your mortgage, your car payment, and all that taken care of, then no, there's no guilt behind that. Zero.
And that's a problem with all of the personal financial spending advice, right? Like, stop buying your lattes every day and you'll retire a millionaire. It's like, no, it's not that simple.
I can't stand
Buy all the
those.
lattes you want.
There's a lot of gurus out there, and
Yeah.
some of them, and a lot of their advice is decent and pretty good, but you're right. They have these blanket statements saying that cut out coffee of your life and you'll have $10 million. It's just like, stop. Like, it really should be about your plan, right? What's important to you. Let's get all of your goals set up and the appropriate money directed towards those goals. Let's get your debt obligations taken care of. And then you could spend whatever the heck you want to spend it on.
And conversely, if someone buys a house, for example, that they really can't afford, how much money they spend on coffee is going to have zero impact on I mean, it'll have an impact, but my point is that's so nominal in the grand scheme of things.
Right. Or if they cut out coffee from their life, but they're still not saving for their retirement, then it doesn't mean anything either.
Yeah, good point.
Doesn't mean anything. All right, good. So now I want to talk about half our clients are retired, right? So I want to talk about how the retiree spends money, because I think this is a whole different level of anxiety. But first, Cory, why don't you give a quick commercial for your show?
Yes, I just like Upticks here. And again, Jake, I appreciate you having me here. My show is In the Money Insight. It's part of the Falcon Wealth Advisors Collective on YouTube. So if you're watching the video and you subscribe to the Falcon Wealth Advisors Collective, you'll get updates when new episodes of my show become available every week, just like Jake's. And there's the podcast also, Spotify, Apple, wherever you listen to podcasts. Please subscribe. Thumbs up, 5 stars if you think it's worth it. But would love to have you join me.
Thank you, Cory. Yeah, and so both of us also send out an email to all of our subscribers. Well, I guess if you subscribe directly on the platform, you wouldn't get an email. But if you want to get an email from us, basically every Tuesday at 10 o'clock, You can get the audio, video, and written version of both of our shows. So mine's all laid out in my email. Cory's is laid out in his, but both of us share links to each other's stuff. So again, you don't have to be subscribed to both, but you certainly can be as well. But
if somebody wants to subscribe to that email, Jake, how do they do that?
Yeah, so you simply go to falconwealthadvisors.com. Under our content section, I've got a little bio there with a link to subscribe, and you've got yours as well.
I think it says Advisor Insights right there.
Yep, Advisor Insights, perfect. And also, I'm out there on social media platforms. So I'm on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Cory, I think you are on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter, right?
I think I'm the only millennial that's not on Instagram.
Yeah, so you're resisting. You'll be on it, or you'll be back.
I've been on and off of it twice.
It's pretty cool. Maybe not. But anyways, I'm on.
Anyway, but yes, I'm out there. I'm out there too.
All right, so let's talk about how to spend money if you're retired, right? Because this is a different dynamic. And like I said, so you no longer have money coming in from active employment, but you have money coming in typically from Social Security, maybe a pension, and maybe distributions from your account at Falcon Wealth Advisors, right? Now, with this piece of it though, because you're not actively employed, you also aren't actively saving for retirement anymore. So a lot of our clients, or at least clients that I talked with, Cory, and maybe you can chime in on this, is that a lot of my clients struggle to pull any money from their accounts, particularly as soon as they retire, because they have literally saved for 30 or 40 years. And now to pull money out of an account that they've done nothing but deposit to is extremely frightening for them. Do you have that same experience with your clients?
All the time.
Yeah.
I tell them you can't just flip the switch. And somebody like me can sit there and tell them until I'm blue in the face, it's going to be okay. You can spend your money. It's okay to retire. It's just not that simple.
Right. And then I think this is when our value that we bring to our clients gets turbocharged, because what we're able to do is not only continue to show them the financial planning projection, but we also can show them projected income from their investments, which I think is probably the best thing that I typically show my clients. So
totally agree. I
might be able to show you, based on the way we have the amount of money you have and the way we have you invested, that you're going to get, $50,000, $100,000, $200,000 a year in dividends and interest. And you may only need to pull out a portion of that. So the good news for that client is that their dividends and their interest from their investments is generating more income than they need, because when you add on Social Security, and pension income and everything else, that's more than enough to sustain their lifestyle. But the key on this, on how to spend their money, on for retirees on how to spend their money, is just to make sure that that financial plan trajectory, whether we have it out 20, 30, 40 years, that is reflective of their current spending. And that's something that we do every time we review with our clients. So that's what's very important, is that, quick plug, we've got four now, just hired a fourth. We've got 4 full-time financial planners on our team. So we've got Matthew Tomlin, right? And we've got Jake Cross, who typically work with me and my clients. And Cory, who works with you and your clients?
Joe Ibarra and Alyssa Woodman.
Right. Perfect. So we've got Joe and Alyssa. And again, they all can work with every client.
Right.
But typically, 2 planners are working with all of our clients. And literally, their full-time jobs are updating those plans and helping us review those with our clients. So the idea is, when you come into review with Cory and I, we will look at your current spending and we will extrapolate that over the next 20 or 30 years. And we'll be able to tell you if you're overspending or if you're underspending. We'll have that conversation every time. That's probably one of the top agenda items we have actually with the retiree, other than how are they feeling, how are they doing. But that's the most important planning piece, is what you're doing sustainable? Now, the good news is, if you're overspending, which many of our clients do initially in retirement, not many, but enough of them do.
Sure.
That what we'll do is that we will slowly, gradually drop that spending number so that your assets prolong and you still don't run out of money. And what a lot of people do is that, and we call it the go-go years, is, Cory, when they retire in their 50s or 60s, and actually it's a little bit rare maybe, but we encourage clients to spend money in those years and enjoy themselves. Because for some people, their goal is not to have $10 million when they're 90 and not do anything. Right?
It doesn't really do anyone a ton of good.
Right. Now, some people want to do that though. Some people say, you know what, Jake, I don't have a mortgage. I don't want to buy any more stuff. I just want to sit at home. I'm a homebody. I don't need to spend money. I want to leave $10 million to my kids. That happens.
That's
I'll
fair.
tell you.
That's what's important, but that's not everyone. That's not most people, I think.
Yeah. Most of our clients are the kids get what's left, period.
Yep.
Right. Which is fine. You know, I always laugh a little bit because I think people feel a little blunt saying it, but I agree with them. I was like, you know what? You worked hard for this money. In your real client story, maybe you're taking care of your kids now, or you already have. And so now it's time for you to go to Rome, or for you to buy that new truck that you've been wanting to buy, or for you to remodel your bathroom, right? Whatever it is. But the idea, though, it's very important, though, that you understand and that you don't fool yourself into saying, okay, Jake says that the money that I'm pulling out of my account today is not sustainable. But you know what? In 5 years, I'll cut it in half, because that might not be so easy to do.
Totally agree.
Right. So that requires discipline. And unfortunately, we can't give that to you. But we can give you guidance on, look, if you lower it by $500 next year, it's going to change this much. And if you lower it by another 500, 2 years after that. So we can stair step down into it and do those projections. We can certainly invest the money, in a risk, right, management way. I'm not going to just try to get lucky and risk your money and lose it all, but we're going to invest that money for you to hit a target rate of return so that the money is sustainable. But the important part for the retiree to understand is, first off, is whatever you're spending sustainable? And I think another important piece here, we can ratchet that up or down and show you what that projection might look like. So if you spend more, what happens? If you spend less, what happens?
I don't want to shift away from retirees. In fact, this kind of still fits in that, but let me ask you a question, Jake, because I get this one a lot, and I'm curious what your advice is. And I think this is an important component of everything we're talking about. If someone's going to retire in, say, a year, at the end of 2022, for example, and they know how much money they have coming in, but they don't really know how much money they spend. How do you help them figure that out? What do you tell them to do?
Well, good question. I used to, way back when in my earlier days as an advisor, I used to just ask the client and let them throw out a number, which I found is dangerous, actually.
Sure. Yeah. So, sometimes they're not, truthful.
Sometimes they don't know, or they're not honest with themselves, or that,
Yep.
or whatever. So first thing I look at is their debt versus their income. So if the client has a lot of credit card debt, I'm going to want to project a higher monthly spend because they are spending more than they're making now. So the good news is, if you're working now, we know what your current income is, and we know what your take-home pay is. So normally, Cory, I start there, right? So that's where I'll start. And then I'll look at their other debt. Are they overspending already? Do they have credit cards? Do they have loans? Are they buying a new car, soon? Or like, what is their car payment going to look like? Do they have a mortgage? I'll take all of those into consideration, and I'll actually help guide them along to overstating an income goal. I always want to overshoot it. So if they think they need 8, I will often round that up to 9 or 10, right? Another exercise they can do, and you probably say this, and I want to hear what you say, but another exercise they can do through our financial planning software at Falcon Wealth Advisors, they actually have the ability to link up their checking accounts, their credit cards, and the tool will automatically, and this is at no additional charge for our clients, will automatically track their monthly, quarterly, annual spending. So they'll be able to see on a chart how much they spend on Postmates or Walmart or their mortgage, right? Or movies or whatever, right? Or coffee, right? So I think if someone really wants to know, that's truly the best way to do it. What do you say?
I tried to set that up for you and you knocked it right out of the park. That's exactly what I was going for there. But in all seriousness, I just started using the same tool myself. Historically, I've been someone who's tracked stuff in an Excel spreadsheet, and it sometimes can be time consuming and not a very enjoyable experience. But I started using this tool myself and linked up credit cards, bank accounts, et cetera, and can look at spending over the last 30 days, the last quarter, the last year, just like you said, Jake. And if I need to reclassify certain things, I can certainly do that, but it's all tracked right there for me. And I think it's important for people to see that, because every time I've ever gone through that type of exercise, it's like, I'm spending how much money on food or how much money on whatever it might be. If nothing else, it helps you get an idea of where it's going. And then you can decide whether or not that's what's really important to you.
Right. You know what I think would be a fun exercise is that if you and I compared where we spend money. I think that would be interesting. And we don't need to do it live on the air, but I would love to see, even as a percentage, like how much do you and Cassie spend on food? Because we have pretty similar situations, right? Neither of us have any kids. We're both married, both have a mortgage. Like I would love to see on a percentage basis how much we spend, because I think that would actually be a good topic for another show. So maybe we'll do that.
I like it.
We don't have to give the dollars, but we can say, Rachel and I spend, 5% of our money on food, and Cory and Cassie spend 4% or 20%. I don't know. Right. So it'll be interesting. I would love to see that, because I know one thing that is, I was a little, I guess I knew it was going to happen, but when I started tracking my spending, I spend an obnoxious amount of money on golf. Like I spend way more money than probably anybody should on golf, frankly. However, I have my savings, right? All of my savings is set up. My retirement, my emergency, and my debt obligations are fulfilled. So while I feel a little guilty, because only from a marriage standpoint, that my wife doesn't spend that much money on books compared to how much I spend on golf. Other than that, though, I have zero guilt for the amount of money I spend on golf, other than Rachel, right? Like I'm like, she should buy more books or clothes, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Or wine, right? She loves wine. Go buy all the wine you want, because if we have room in the budget for golf, that means we should have room for her stuff. And she doesn't complain, don't get me wrong, but it's just, I spend a lot of money on golf. Way more than, yeah.
I mean what I'm about to say in a complimentary way, Jake, but like, on the flip side of that though, like an iPhone, right? You have an iPhone, but you have an iPhone that's, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 iPhones old, right? My point is, that's not that you're not going out and trying to buy a new iPhone every year. You'd rather spend that money playing golf. If the phone works, then fine.
Exactly. Yeah, good point. That's a very good point. Good. So do we have anything? So again, for the retiree, another quick tip on the retiree, I think some people, this isn't as common either, but also if you're getting, some clients are getting Social Security even while they're working, because they're working, into their 60s or 70s. So you also want to understand that once you ultimately retire, some of our clients are, I know, at least someone, a real client story that's used to saving that Social Security check, believe it or not, because they're working. So they're having a tough time understanding that they're not going to need to save that anymore. And so I've been guiding them through saying, hey, you've done a great job of working and saving Social Security money, but when you retire, just so you know, you're not going to save that Social Security money anymore. You're going to spend it, right? But again, that's it's hard for some people to get over that, because they're savers. They're naturally built to save, and so, but again, that's one of our, that's why people hire us. Is that one of the advice that we give is to help with the psychological impact of spending too much or saving too much. And that's what the financial planning helps. That's what having a conversation helps. You and I have literally helped hundreds of people plan for and retire. Hundreds of people plan for and retire successfully. And that's why clients come to us.
That's right. And maybe it's my own need for, validation, but 5-10 years after someone retires and I work with a client, hearing someone say, you know what, things have really gone according to our plan. We've been able to do what we wanted to go and do, and we're on track or ahead of where we thought we would be at this point in time. That's about the most rewarding part of what we can help clients do.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's great that you're getting good feedback, and we'll take, good and bad feedback, because that's what you and I are constantly just trying to evolve. I got to say that, me practicing for 15 years, my advice is worth a lot more now than it was 15 years ago, because of, and not even just because of I've been an advisor for 15 years. It's the amount of reading I've done and podcasts and client interactions that we're really bringing a lot of value to people's lives. And that's really why we do this. So good. So thank you again for tuning in. I've got some fun topics to talk about real quick with you, Cory. But real quick, if anybody has any questions, Cory, the best way to probably get a hold of you is via email, right?
Cory at falconwealthadvisors.com. No E in Cory.
Right. I was going to say that it's not Corey. It's Cory.
Yep.
And not Kori.
Nope.
Cory.
You got it. No K's, no E's.
And mine is Jake at falconwealthadvisors.com. Not as oftenly misspelled.
Is that Jake? Okay.
That is. Do you ever give your parents a hard time about that?
No.
Because Cory,
really.
I mean, Cory with an E, that's probably my default on how I would spell it, but I could see just no E being fine.
That's your opinion.
Right. But I'm just saying like the default, right, is probably, that's why people default to E. But I like that it's a little bit unique probably. So
it works for me. I don't take it personally anymore either. When people use a K or an E or whatever it is, it doesn't bother me at all.
Good. Yeah, it shouldn't. But it does actually. People, their name are what they value the most. So that all has to do with the ego and the identity in the self. But anyways, so quickly before we wrap up here, any fun shows, books, movies that you kind of have out there, feedback or recommendations on? Got anything?
Not a ton. We are actually, Cassie and I are watching a show. It's pretty wild. We're watching a show on Showtime called Yellow Jackets right now.
Not Yellowstone.
Yellow Jackets.
Yellow Jackets. All right. I haven't heard of that one. You're not a Yellowstone fan, huh?
No, I want to watch it, but I haven't carved out the time to do it.
Huge one. As of the release of this show, I think Yellowstone's season, I don't know what season they're on, maybe 3 will be wrapped up.
Okay.
So that's a really good show. I just watched the James Bond. Have you watched that yet?
Nope. I have not seen any of the James Bond movies that Daniel Craig is in.
Wow, you are missing out.
I know. I've seen like 2 James Bond movies in my life.
I think Daniel Craig's, I haven't seen all of them or a lot of them, but I think Daniel Craig's a really good Bond. I did like this most recent. There's something with the Bond music that is 100% iconic. I mean, to me, totally. The music almost makes the movie. It does. Do
you remember the music on GoldenEye on Nintendo? Did you ever play that game?
I didn't play that much. I was a little old. I was a little older for video games at that time. I did, but I wasn't very good at it. But
you were on the golf course.
Right. But you know what? It's probably the same music, Cory. That's what's awesome about it.
It's iconic.
Right. I read a really good book lately, really easy book. I read it like in 2 or 3 days, called A Very Punchable Face by Colin Jost. He is the quote unquote fictitious news anchor on Saturday Night Live. He's got a cool story. So if anyone, it's kind of an inspiring story, kind of where he grew up in Staten Island, family of firefighters, and to get where he's at is pretty impressive, actually. Not that firefighters are bad. It's just you would think someone that's famous, that is that famous, would kind of have a silver spoon, but he really didn't. He's just a normal guy like anybody else. So
good for him.
Yeah, I thought that a normal guy that went to Harvard, but
sure.
But he grew up. I mean, you could tell he grew up very normal. Like, I appreciated it. I thought it was a good book. And
I'm finishing a book right now, Jake, that's called Trust Your Vibes, that our business coach is having us read, or has having me read. And it's a pretty interesting book. It's written by someone who is basically like I don't know if license is the right word, but basically somebody who practices like having a sixth sense, right? Almost like a psychic energy. And it's not so much, it's not what it sounds like, but the whole concept of this book is that, intuitively we have our 5 senses, but there's also, a psychic energy that all of us radiate and that we pick up on from other people, and ways to, just sort of trust your gut and yourself to do the right thing every time.
Interesting.
Pretty interesting.
Good. And I'm reading one more, and then we'll wrap it up here. One more I've got. I'm reading The Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay. How about that for some fiction?
Never even heard of it.
And I never read fiction, but one of my wife's friends got me this book a while back, and it's thick. It's like this thick. It's like 700 pages. It should be a movie. It's actually really well written. It's a novel about these 2 cousins and all the things they get into, and it's I like reading the fiction, actually. I just probably shouldn't have picked one that's so long, because it's taken me a long time to read it, but I have enjoyed it. It's a really good book. So if you want a long fiction book that hasn't really gotten old at all, it could actually be a series, right? So I think they can make this a series. It's that good, but it's been fun to read. So thank you.
What's it called?
The Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay. And I think it won like a Pulitzer Prize.
Okay.
It's like a famous novel and it's thick. And my wife read it, who knows, long time
In
ago.
a day or two.
But no, I don't know. I don't know how long it took her. I think she read it when she was young though. It's been good though. It's a good book. So it's a good distraction because I feel like I read a lot of nonfiction, finance books,
Same.
Which I really, really, really enjoy. But it's good to kind of get your mind in a creative mode without watching it on TV, right? Or a movie.
Yep.
So anyways, it's been fun.
My two favorite books that I read this year were both novels.
Really interesting. So that tells you should read more novels.
Same author.
2022. What were they?
The first one was called The Devil in the White City, and the second one was called In the Garden of Beasts. And they're both by the same author, and it's about true historical events. So it's actually all true. So it is
Historical
nonfiction,
fiction,
but
is
it's
what they call it.
Is it considered fiction if it's true, even if it's historical fiction?
Yes, I think so.
I would call it maybe historical nonfiction, but either way, this particular author, Eric
Hold
Larson,
on.
is his
Historical nonfiction is nonfiction by its nature.
Well, I guess it's all true, but it reads like a novel. So he takes true facts and makes it read like a novel.
Oh, so all the stories are true.
It's all true.
Oh, okay. Then yeah, I would call that a history book.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
I guess that's exactly what it is.
It's historic. Yeah, it's a history. It's history. Interesting.
Yep.
I thought those were fiction. Maybe not. Maybe you told me. Huh. Okay.
I don't know.
Cool.
I don't know.
Fair enough. All right, good.
But
That's
I love
all
the
this.
books.
You can see the sun is rising, so we've been at this a while. All right, we got to go meet with our team. So thank you all for joining us. Hope everybody out there had a happy new year. We look forward to cranking out more content in 2022. If you got any advice for guests that you'd like us to bring on the shows or topics, please feel free to do so. Thank you again and have a great day.